tonight. A program put in place by the province to help reduce cancer care wait times in BC is garnering criticism. Plus, it's been a challenging year for a local MLA. We look into why and what the future holds in 2024. And it was a tough season for the Spruce Kings thus far. We'll recap the first half of the year for the local hockey team. Good evening, I'm Eddie Huband and welcome to CKPG News. Our top story tonight, cancer care in BC has been in the headlines for months now, with the Premier calling wait times unacceptable. A new program was rolled out by Victoria months ago, allowing cancer patients to go to Washington State for treatment. But is the program a success? Adam Burles spoke to the Minister of Health to find out more.
Our cancer care system is under pressure. Cancer patients in all corners of British Columbia are waiting months for treatment, something that BC's Minister of Health acknowledges.
In the North and Vancouver Island, especially in Fraser Health, where we weren't meeting clinical benchmarks.
In order to help ease the strain on the system in BC, the government introduced a program that would see cancer patients in BC be sent to Washington State for treatment. A program, says the minister, that is only a stopgap solution.
The program has, I think, been important, but it is only a 2-year contract, and the intention is for it to stop. And for us to be achieving acceptable response times and wait times here in British Columbia.
The most recent data shows that only 14 patients from Northern Health have started cancer treatments in the United States since the program began, and the leader of the opposition says that this is only a band-aid solution.
It's not working at all for Northerners. That's why there's been so little take-up. Not surprisingly, people don't feel like they want to be away from their families for extended periods of time, to have to go all the way down to the Lower Mainland and then have to, drive or get themselves all the way over to Bellingham.
Falcon says that money alone will not fix the problem.
If it was about more money, the healthcare system problems would have been fixed already. They hire a lot more people into healthcare, but they are not doctors, nurses, oncologists, care aides.
The minister maintains that bringing in the Bellingham program was to ensure that people would get care right away.
We need to meet the clinical standard, which is 90% less than 28 days, basically. And we got to meet that standard. And I wasn't prepared to wait. And had the Bellingham service not been available, we would have had to consider other things. But we wanted to add that so that those people would get care right away.
Even with the option to go to Washington State for treatment, the long waits still exist, something that the Premier said he is going to tackle in 2024. Adam Burles, CKPG News.
2023 was a year of change and some challenges for our RCMP, but despite that, its superintendent says it was still a successful year. Tommy Osborne learned about how the year went from Superintendent Sean Wright and brings us this story.
Homicides, the decriminalization of hard drugs, clearing the Millennium Park homeless encampment. These are just some of many challenges the RCMP faced in 2023.
Decriminalization of hard drugs in British Columbia was a learning curve for us that occurred in January and through the year, so we had to implement some new strategies on how to deal with those things. We still receive a lot of calls with people calling us and saying, hey, there's people smoking drugs on the sidewalk at whatever location, and there's really no criminal offense since January for us, unless it's within a few meters of the school or that sort of thing.
One thing that stood out to Wright was the high amount of homicides in Prince George and the area, as we had 8 confirmed this year. This is a symptom of an increasing drug trade in Prince George. As Wright explained, Prince George serves as a hub for many communities in northern BC and the Yukon, and recently it's seen more criminals congregate here.
It's very attractive to some of these crime groups, so some individuals from some of those gangs or organizations have tried to push into the illicit drug trade here, and that's resulted in a number of the incidents we've seen this year. We're really seeing some individuals from other locations, particularly the Lower Mainland and some parts of Alberta, really looking to push in and take control here.
While the year had its challenges, Wright believes overall it was a successful year for the RCMP. On the topic of decriminalizing drugs, Wright said the sobering center that opened early this year was huge for the RCMP in finding ways to combat social disorder that comes with open drug use.
Certainly gives us another option, a much better option on where we can take these people and where they can have someone oversee them until they sober up and help connect them with services.
Other successes include recruitment numbers, as well as the Repeat Violent Offender Initiative, which Wright says has helped the RCMP keep violent offenders in custody. Overall, Wright hopes to continue building on the positives of 2023 while finding ways to address some of the challenges in the coming year. Tommy Osborne, CKPG News.
MLA for Prince George Valemount Shirley Bond is a big booster for the North politically. She says the past year has been challenging, but the future is even more concerning. Have a look.
Prince George Valemount MLA Shirley Bond has been in provincial politics for more than 2 decades. She says now more than ever, affordability for British Columbians has become front and center over the past year.
I think the story that has perhaps troubled me most is the whole issue of affordability and the sense of not being heard. And you know, that deeply concerns me, because just because we live where we do doesn't mean we're not entitled to the same kind of services and attention that people get in other parts of the province.
A personal fight for Bond in recent years is near and dear to her, specific to the North, what she calls the deteriorating level of healthcare.
And when it comes to either a surgical tower or even cardiac care, you know, we know that we have the capacity to have cardiac work done here in Northern British Columbia. Instead, families like mine and yours and others are sent out of the community at times, the worst times of their lives. And so I think there is a growing sense of feeling that we are not acknowledged.
The North is reliant on the resource sector, and Prince George has been the service centre for a number of major projects. But projects like Coastal GasLink have wrapped up construction, and other projects are coming to an end.
I think we need to think about what do we need to be doing to continue to grow the economy, to continue to make sure we can support families in this province and do all the things that they expect us to do with revenue generation. So I am very concerned about that, and I think it requires an intentional, collaborative approach with our First Nations leaders, all levels of government, to say, what comes next?
There will be a provincial election next year at some point, but there is plenty of speculation it will be in the spring. But Bond has a cautionary note for Premier David Eby.
David Eby, it'll be interesting to see what he does. You know, I think he's going to show British Columbians whether he's a man of his word or not. He has said repeatedly that he's going to go the full distance in the term, which would make for an October election. Ironically, David Eby was also one of the people who advocated for moving provincial elections to the fall.
She says there needs to be a big, bold vision for Northern BC. What is the region going to look like in 5, 10, and even 20 years into the future? Cheryl Jan, CKPG News.
The 5th annual United Way Tree of Lights campaign raised tens of thousands of dollars, but unfortunately it fell well short of its ultimate goal. Wrapping up last week, the Tree of Lights raised more than $26,000, but that was only around half of its goal of $50,000. Hosted at the Coast Hotel, the tree usually sits on the roof of the hotel for everyone to see. This year it was inside. The Tree of Lights website says this was to give people more ways to interact with the tree, like taking pictures with it and getting to see it up close. All the funds raised does go back into our community as it supports United Way's children and youth programming here in Prince George. And even though the campaign fell short of its goal, United Way wanted to give a huge thank you to all the supporters and people who donated. Donations are still being accepted until the 4th of January, and you can donate on the Tree of Lights website. New Year celebrations are coming up in a couple more days, and BC Transit wants to make sure you have a safe way home. Have a listen.
Along with our partners at the City of Prince George, we're pleased to provide residents and those in the area with free transit after 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve. And we've also extended some service on some routes until about 3 a.m. And this is all to ensure that our customers have a safe way to get home and that everyone is able to enjoy their New Year's Eve activities responsibly. So again, that's free transit after 7 p.m. For customers and some extended service on routes until about 3 a.m. For a list of those routes, it's best to check bctransit.com/prince-george.
Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives started the year tied in the polls with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals. But now the opposition leader is finishing with the commanding lead. Here's more on the federal political landscape as we move into 2024.
Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
He bristles at some questions.
Actually, you're wrong. You're a CP?
And prefers speaking directly to voters.
Who's ready for some common sense?
Either at the dozens of rallies he held in 2023 across the country or via video distributed on social media platforms.
A lot of people would say that you're simply taking a page out of the Donald Trump book.
Like which people would say that?
Pierre Poilievre's Okanagan apple orchard interview went viral, as did this online video, 15 minutes long, on Canada's housing crisis, which Poilievre narrated.
An entire generation of youth now say they will never be able to afford a home. This is not normal for Canada.
However he did it, it has paid off in voter support.
Sure, they talk about other stuff here and there, but for the most part, they're super focused and they're super simple in their message.
They've definitely shown a willingness to innovate and just try different types of social media and different types of videos, which is just a good thing you want to see from an opposition party.
The Conservatives finished 2023 with a commanding double-digit lead in the polls, having raised more money through the year than all other parties combined. And Poilievre himself was named Newsmaker of the Year by the Canadian Press, the very news organization he goes out of his way to taunt.
Everything feels broken in Canada.
But of course, there may not be an election until the fall of 2025. That's a long time for the Conservatives to maintain the momentum built in 2023.
It's not like people have cast a ballot for him yet, so they could certainly change their minds just as easily as they have moved towards his direction. And I think that's the risk that he faces over the next year.
Like we saw with the CP journalist recently, like we've seen in other ways where he just gets like he has those little snide comments in the House or in scrums or whatever it is. Those parts are what'll get him in trouble.
One way the Conservatives can maintain momentum in 2024 is by nominating so-called star candidates. Stephen Harper did that ahead of the 2005 election. Justin Trudeau did it in 2015, bringing on the likes of Chrystia Freeland and Bill Morneau. Adding some big-name candidates to Poilievre's team is likely the party's next step as it prepares for 2025.
And with more on the federal political outlook, Adam Burles joins us, CKPG political analyst. So, Adam, let's stick on the, what's going on here federally. Looking forward to next year, what are the key issues that party leaders are going to be focusing on to garner support?
So as we just kind of heard from that last story, affordability, housing, those are going to be the big two going into next year. Not only next year, but into the next federal election. Those two issues are really going to set the stage for the next federal election campaign. Those party leaders are going to be campaigning hard on those two issues, trying to game out each other, trying to see which one will have the better initiatives, and ultimately which policies will resonate better with voters. It's only going to be a matter of time until we see what those policies are. Trudeau's Liberals are going to say, stick with us, we've got the answers, and Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are going to say, go with us, we've got the right answers. So it's going to all come down to Election Day.
Now, just under 2 years to an election, obviously the polls are looking good for the Conservative Party at the moment, but you can't always trust them. What current polling numbers hold until then?
Right. So as you mentioned, polling numbers, they are not infallible. They are very much, they can change any time. As we saw in 2013, I go back to the 2013 provincial election, a bit different, of course. BC Liberals were destined to go down, to be defeated, because that's what polling numbers were said. That wasn't the case. They went to a resounding victory in that election. So you have to take polling numbers carefully, but you can't ignore them either. These polling numbers with Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives are nothing to ignore. This is some real traction he's got going on right now, not just in conservative areas of the country, Western Canada, but in Ontario, in Quebec, and those two areas of the country, that's what he needs to win the next election, Ontario, Quebec, and he seems to be making some inroads there. So it's going to be interesting to see when that writ is dropped and we see what happens.
Now, in terms of the Prime Minister, what does he need to do over the next year or so to gain support and to kind of close that gap?
Get himself out there. That's the one thing I think he needs to do. Pierre Poilievre he's been traveling across the country this past year, and we're not even close to an election yet. So you can imagine what the next year is going to be like for Pierre Poilievre. He's going to be hitting the road hard, going to all four corners of the country to make sure that he's resonating with voters. You got to resonate with voters, and you got to talk to them directly. You got to be there. You got to listen to them. You can't do that when you're in Ottawa. You can't do that. You can't decide what issues are good for people in British Columbia. when you're in Ottawa.
And Adam, just quickly to finish things up here, do you see a bit of voter fatigue going on with Justin Trudeau and the Liberals?
I'm starting to sense that. I mean, polling numbers, again, like I said, not infallible, but you're starting to see those in the polling numbers too, that perhaps most of the electorate may not be wanting to go forward with the Trudeau Liberals anymore. Just don't know, but we're just going to see what happens. There can be, after 8 years of one party, a lot of baggage, a lot of controversy, a lot of scandal, voters might be thinking it's time for a change. We saw that with the last government as well.
Right. It's going to be very interesting as things move forward. Adam Burles, thank you very much for joining us. Muscle dysmorphia is a rising problem as more teen boys are becoming obsessed with their body images. Sam Benison has more.
And now to your health. Brought to you by Hard Drugs, 3rd Avenue Pharmacy, and the Phoenix Pharmacy.
Eating right and getting exercise is great for your body, health, and your overall well-being, but excessively going to the gym can be too much of a good thing.
Muscle dysmorphic disorder is a mental health condition where someone has an intense preoccupation with maybe perceived flaws or the way their body looks. So specifically with bigorexia or muscle dysmorphia disorder, someone is obsessed with the idea that their body isn't big enough or needs more muscle.
While muscle dysmorphia was first discovered in the 90s, it has increased in prevalency due to the highly visual nature of social media.
So we're actually seeing teen boys as being really at risk for this specific condition. I think with the increasing prevalence of social media use, so Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, and the highly visual nature of these apps, we're seeing this hyper focus on body weight and appearance.
People who have muscle dysmorphic disorder can also engage in unhealthy dieting, such as an excessive bulk and cut diet.
So it might be someone who is dieting to an extreme, so cutting out food groups, has an intense fear around certain types of foods, has to avoid social situations where food's involved, or their obsession with food is leading to kind of medical conditions or impacting their health.
Exercise is great, but if it starts interfering with your life or causing injuries, speak with a professional about how you can strike a healthy gym life balance.
The challenging thing about identifying something like muscle dysmorphic disorder is that people are often living with this in secrecy. It's not often obvious to those outside looking in that someone's struggling, right? For others, it might just look like someone is leading a really healthy lifestyle, when in reality they're struggling internally with this obsession. And so if you're noticing that someone's healthy lifestyle is starting to maybe interfere with their life, or you're feeling like it's becoming an obsession, ask, reach out, offer support, and encourage someone to seek help.
To your health. Brought to you by Hard Drugs, 3rd Avenue Pharmacy, and the Phoenix Pharmacy.
The lowest gas price in Prince George is currently sitting at $1.44.9 a litre at Costco. The lowest price in the province right now is in Chilliwack at $1.39.9 per litre. Alberta currently has the lowest fuel prices on average in the country at $1.16.1 a litre. BC, meanwhile, has an average price of $1.60.4 a litre.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Feed your team tonight with a delicious mix and match combo. Chicken, pizza, pasta, or dessert for just $8.99 per item.
The Prince George Spruce Kings are heading into the new year, and we'll see if 2024 goes a little bit better than 2023. We got the chance to catch up with their general manager, Mike Hawes, on how he thought the past year has gone.
From losing in the first round of playoffs to losing some key players, the Spruce Kings have had anything but a simple year. With major shifts in the league added into the mix, there's a lot to unpack.
I'd prefer that we placed higher. It was an okay regular season, but certainly the playoffs did not go as we had hoped as we got swept by Salmon Arm. But the turnover, you're right. We lost a lot of players last year. I knew that was kind of coming. I don't like the word rebuild. I don't really believe in that, especially at our level. It's you just reload type of thing. And then we went into this season, and to be honest with you guys, some of the guys, veteran guys we were relying on, have come in and underachieved a little bit this year.
The elephant in the room for the BCHL was their separation from Hockey Canada. As the year has progressed, teams have adjusted to the change, but the initial shock was interesting to get used to.
We can't make trades with other leagues across the country. That's changed things significantly. How we bring players in, how we recruit players, that changed. If things aren't working out with certain players, how we release players has changed. All of that.
Haas says overall the move was a good one for the league, and fans, although hesitant about the decision at first, have come around as well.
I think now, we've got a 25 or almost 30 game window now that fans have been able to watch the product, and I think they're realizing that it's the best product this league has ever put on the ice overall. We do our best to give them a good product that they can come and watch and be excited about. And it's been 50 years, and it'll be another 50 that this team will be here with, the same sort of people that love coming to watch.
The future of the Spruce Kings is on the brain, but Haas mentions they have just a couple of chess pieces to move around, and they'll be good to go.
Not that we've taken a couple steps backwards, but I need to, in my role, kind of regroup a little bit, figure out what that landscape looks like, figure out the plan moving forward. The only uncertain part maybe is our arena, and we all know there's no secret in town that it's at its end of life, and there's some discussions with the city, and I sure hope that works out. So in the years to come, I hope we're still in the downtown of Prince George, playing in a beautiful new facility, and all our fans are able to come out and continue to support us.
The Spruce Kings have 27 regular season games left. Caitlin Poversnick, CKPG News.
The TSX is up 135 points to close at 21,016. The Dow Jones is up 111 points to close at 37,657. And Canfor went down 36 cents to close at $17.79.
Mild temperatures all throughout the province today, plenty of cloud cover and a little bit of precipitation finishing off our Wednesday. But as we get into Thursday morning, a lot of that precipitation is expected to begin drying up, and a lot of that cloud cover is expected to begin clearing out for some areas. So most areas of the province expecting to see a sun-cloud mix for Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Sunday, though, getting a little bit of a shift with a little bit more cloud cover. Here's our future cast. So tons of pockets of precipitation moving all throughout the province, but for the Prince George area tomorrow, for the most part, expecting to be mostly dry. Very similar case for Friday as well. Of course, Wednesday, a lot of areas of the province waking up to that tail end of that weather system, but after that, we are expecting relatively dry conditions. Highs tomorrow across the province. Terrace looking at a high right around +3. Again, some wet weather to start off the day. Prince Rupert, a little bit warmer at about 9. Victoria still in the double digits at about 11 for tomorrow. Vancouver, very similar. Kelowna area up to around +5 with some sunshine. Kamloops right around +6. Prince George, we have a very similar forecast as well, right around +6 with a mix of sun and cloud. Highs tomorrow across the rest of the broadcast region. Burns Lake, a little bit cooler at around +2, warming up in Vanderhoof at around +4. Prince George, as mentioned, we're expecting a high right around 6 above for tomorrow. Across the rest of the country tomorrow, Edmonton with a high of around 6 degrees, still getting some sunshine there. That sunshine continues for Regina. Regina starting to warm up. Winnipeg cooling off, dipping below the freezing mark right around -1. As you get into the Montreal and Toronto area, those clouds are still staying pretty persistently. Looking ahead, we have a sun-cloud mix in the forecast starting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, possibly switching up as we get into that Sunday period, though. Speaking of, here's that extended forecast. So tonight in the Burns Lake area, still looking at a slight chance of some wet flurries, some sleet, so be mindful of that if you're out on the roadways. Warming up tomorrow, mix of sun and cloud. Friday, still a chance of precipitation that will continue throughout the weekend for the Burns Lake area. Mackenzie, looking at a pretty similar forecast to Prince George, so partly cloudy tonight, mix of sun and cloud tomorrow, some mild temperatures, very similar for Friday. Saturday, though, possibly getting some icy rain in the morning, so be mindful of that if you're planning any weekend travel. McBride area tonight looking relatively clear, dipping down to around -2. Tomorrow's daytime high right around +5, so pretty pleasant, pretty warm for this time of year. Relatively sunny. Friday looking at a mix of sun and cloud, cooling off a little bit before things warm up again for Saturday. In the Quesnel area, looking at some patchy cloud cover in this overnight period. A pretty warm evening ahead, though. Just getting down to around +3 overnight. Cooling off a little bit overnight on Thursday evening, but during the day, getting up to a high of +7 with a mix of sun and clouds. So very mild weather there. That's expected to continue for Friday and Saturday as well. Sunday, though, as mentioned, clouding over a little bit, and that chance of precipitation will start to strengthen. Prince George, we are looking at a mix of sun and cloud for tomorrow. High of around +6. Pretty pleasant temperatures. More of the same on Friday, starting to cool off a little bit, turning cloudier into our Friday evening. Saturday, we're looking at mostly clouds and a chance of showers to start off the weekend, and even more of that on Sunday with a little bit of icy rain in our forecast.
CKPG Sports is delivered by Domino's. Feed your team tonight with a delicious mix and match combo. Chicken, pizza, pasta, or dessert for just $8.99 per item.
After an extended break for the holidays, the Prince George Cougars are back in action tonight. The last time we saw the Cats play was on December 16th when they dominated Vancouver with a 9-2 road win. That sums up the Cougars' season so far quite nicely. They're currently the #1 team in the dub. Coming out of the break, the Cougars hope to keep that momentum going tonight with a home game against the Edmonton Oil Kings, who sit dead last in the standings. This will be the first matchup this season between the two teams, and the Alberta action continues tomorrow night as the Calgary Hitmen are coming to town. And like Edmonton, Calgary is also towards the bottom of the standings. This will also be the first game between the Hitmen and the Cougars this season. Even though Christmas is behind us now, that doesn't mean we can't look back at how great the day was in sports. Tommy Osborne brings you the top sports highlights from Christmas Day in tonight's CKP3.
Starting off with some basketball, the annual Christmas tradition. Christmas is for the NBA, and Giannis lets us know it with the emphatic alley-oop slam. Middleton gives the feed to the Greek freak who brings it home. RJ Barrett tried to stop him, but nothing stops Giannis when he's going full steam ahead. Next, turning defense into offense. Klay Thompson sets up a three like he's so used to, but Michael Porter Jr. says not today. Not only does he get the clean block, he takes the ball to the house. No disrespect to Chris Paul, one of our generation's greatest players, but there was no way he's stopping Porter Jr. going full sprint down the court. Finally, self-inflicted wounds.
The back games where the Giants have struggled to get it going offensively. Short kick, and a return here from Boston Scott. Runs into Olamide Zaccheaus, and the Giants have the ball!
Olamide Zaccheaus must be a Giants sleeper agent. I mean, how else do you explain this play? Zaccheaus runs full sprint into his own guy, Boston Scott, giving the Giants' Isaiah Simmons the easiest fumble recovery of his life in tonight's CKP3.
All right, folks, that's all for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us as always, and we will see you tomorrow.